Well, folks, it's basically official that Kellen Moore will become the next New Orleans Saints head coach after the Eagles and Chiefs play in Super Bowl 59 next Sunday, which is massive news for the Dolphins, and it is news that the Miami Dolphins have been waiting for because now they have clarity on their coaching staff and how things will progress with the rest of the offseason. I'm Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. We're going to break down everything on today's show, but this was kind of the tweet that kind of set things in stone, in my opinion, for where things are heading with the Saints head coach vacancy. Rapoport saying that as the Saints zero in on Kellen Moore, slated to have another conversation with him after the Super Bowl, their interim head coach Darren Rizzi is likely going to become the next Broncos special teams coordinator, and that's a big hire for Denver, but we're focusing on Miami because Anthony Weaver was likely one of the final three coaches that could have had the New Orleans Saints job, but instead he will be staying with the Miami Dolphins as their defensive coordinator for a second season in 2025, which is just massive news for the Dolphins roster, the coaching staff, as well as Dolphins fans, and it has me fired up. And if you are excited that Anthony Weaver is going to be staying with the Miami Dolphins in 2025, hit that thumbs up icon. I thought he did a terrific job this last season, so the fact that he's staying makes me happy. Hit that like button. And this is huge for multiple reasons. And if you've been around the channel, you would have known why this is big. We've documented it quite a bit, but keeping Anthony Weaver for a second straight season allows you to potentially get 2 third-round comp picks next NFL draft in 2026 if he leaves for a head coaching job then, because you need to have 2 years on the organization and then get a head coach or GM job for the comp picks to come to you. And he only spent 1 year in Miami, so now that if he ever does get a head coaching job after leaving the Dolphins staff following this upcoming season, he will give Miami 2 comp picks. But also, you get continuity for your defense this upcoming season because we've had a lot of different defensive coordinators since Mike McDaniels took over. Boyer, Fangio, Weaver. This would have been defensive coordinator number 4 in 2025 if you did not have Weaver stay on. And even then, Weaver could become your head coach next year if you ultimately move on from Mike McDaniel if he disappoints in 2025. It is a win-win-win for the Dolphins to keep Weaver on the staff in 2025. And I thought he did a great job. I really did in his first season. He dealt with a lot of injuries. Bradley Chubb never returned. Jalen Phillips got hurt after the first month of the season. You didn't have a elite pass rush, which resulted in a poor total in sacks all season long, but they were able to combat it, be top 10 in yards per game allowed, top 5 in pass yards attempt, top 10 in EPA per play. I was a big fan of what Weaver was able to do with what he was working with, and I expect him to be even better in 2025 because this was his first year ever being a defensive coordinator. It was his first year ever being a play caller. Now that he has a full season under his belt, I expect the Dolphins to be even better on that side of the football because I think they will have more health, or at least you can hope they will have more health, and then he'll know and have more experience in the regard of when to dial up blitzes, because I thought he was a little reserved this past season in terms of dialing up blitzes. Hopefully that changes, and hopefully he'll be able to have a better second season because I thought there's a lot to build on after a good first year in the 305. So let me know your thoughts on Anthony Weaver's first season. Grade his first year for me on a scale of 1 to 10 down in the comments section. It's today's pinned comment, so go scroll down and answer the question. The reason why I think it's going to continue to get better is some key changes for the Dolphins. There's a couple players returning to this defense and a couple people leaving that will ultimately benefit Miami. Bradley Chubb did not play this entire season. Him potentially coming back for Miami is absolutely massive. Jalen Phillips only played in 4 games. Him coming back is absolutely massive. And then Jordan Poyer and Javon Holland, who were a really anticipated duo on that back end were not good this past year. And now having both of them potentially leave, Poyer will be, Holland's TBD, but having a completely different safety room will benefit Miami in a big way as well. But I want to focus in on the pass rush because they were absolutely abysmal in 2024. They had a sack percentage that was 27th in all of football. And you see the other numbers. They ranked in the bottom half in terms of getting after the quarterback, yet they still allowed top 5 in terms of passing yards per game and passing yards per attempt, which tells you that this secondary was very, very good in terms of covering in 2024. Tackling, different story, but allowing the opposing team to beat you through the air didn't happen that often. Now, you did play a bad group of quarterbacks, so that might be a little reason why. But if you're able to stack a really good pass rush with a good secondary, then you can talk about this defense being even better. And it could only get better from what it was last season. It really can, because Chop Robinson will be entering year 2. You expect an improvement from him after him and Jared Verse were 2 of the best edge rushers all season long as rookies. Jalen Phillips, as we've mentioned, should be healthy by the beginning part of the season, and by training camp, he'll be ready to go after only playing in 4 games. And if you keep Bradley Chubb by restructuring his contract, he would be an excellent 3rd edge rusher for you, and you still have Mo Kamara, the 5th round pick from 2024, still hanging there as well. I have labeled Bradley Chubb as a trade candidate, a cut candidate in past videos, but there is also a chance they just restructure his contract, save about $14 million against the cap, and keep him on their roster for 2025. If you do that, you have maybe the best pass rush trio when fully healthy. Chubb, Phillips, and Chop could be absolutely lethal, and then you have Mo Kamara in his 2nd year as your 4th edge rusher. Maybe you draft one or kind of hope Grayson Murphy can be a UDFA fine from last year and be that 5th guy in rotation, because they only keep 4 or 5 guys active for every single game at that edge rusher group. This is a very positive thing, and if you keep those guys healthy, you might have an elite pass rush next season. You pair that up with the scheme that Anthony Weaver's running, and oh boy, you might have to look out. We're going to continue the conversation here in just a second, but we are sponsored by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports platform in North America. And with the big game just a week away, don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win real cash while watching the big game. Prize Picks is giving away a free pick for that game, by the way, more than Patrick Mahomes' half a passing yard. That's right. All you need is to pair one more stat projection up to win real cash. But you can play Prize Picks while you wait for the big game, and you could go to basketball. I've got an entry on tonight's Heat Spurs game. You see it, 3-player entry. I got player combos, normal and stat projection, a goblin, which lowers the risk but also lowers the payout. You can play any type of way you want, which is why I love Prize Picks. It's so versatile, and you can really just customize the way you play daily fantasy sports. So join the millions of people playing Prize Picks on a daily basis. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the app, and when you create an account, use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Link is in the description and comments of today's video. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, as we get into more around this defense here, I think it's important to look at what needs to be improved from last year's defense. I think it ranked pretty well amongst the NFL, but there are still some needs. You need to completely overhaul your safety room. That's number one. To me, replacing both Jordan Poyer and Javon Holland is the top priority for Chris Grier on the defensive side of the football field. You need to solidify your off-ball linebacker 2 role next to Jordan Brooks. Maybe that's in the draft. Maybe that's bringing back Tyrell Dodson. I think you need a long-term interior defensive lineman as well to pair up with Zach Sealer, but also maybe be a replacement for him down the line. I think that's very important. And then I think you need to add cornerback depth. And that's the one thing that we're going to talk about here, because we've talked ad nauseum about the first 3, but we haven't really talked about cornerback depth, because that's a big position of need in my opinion. And you might look at the depth chart and say, why would they need cornerback depth? They have a lot of guys on that roster right now. Jalen Ramsey and Kendall Fuller are your top 2. They'll be returning next season. season. But Kader Kohou is a free agent, so you might need to replace him at the nickel, or you'll need to allot money to re-sign him. And you have 3 guys behind Ramsey and Fuller on the roster. Storm Duck, a UDFA from last year. Cam Smith, the former second-round pick in 2023, and Ethan Bonner, but I think Bonner could be a cut candidate. No dead cap, frees up $1.1 million, and he was basically a healthy and active all year in 2024. There's a lot of tough decisions to be made here. You have your cornerback duo set, but are you re-signing Kader Kohou? And are you giving Cam Smith a 3rd chance? Because in year 1, he couldn't get any PT for Vic Fangio. In year 2, he was injured, and even when Kendall Fuller went down later in the year, they opted to go with Storm Duck as that boundary cornerback opposite of Jalen Ramsey rather than Cam Smith. And when Cam Smith got a little bit of PT earlier on the year against the Cardinals and other guys, he really struggled. Does he get a 3rd opportunity to be your 3rd boundary corner? I don't know if the defense will give him that. It will be a lot of tough decisions for the Miami Dolphins, but that is why I think it's important that you are ultimately going to keep Anthony Weaver, because he will know what to do, know what he's looking for, and he has a feel of these players as a play caller, unlike he did last season when jumping ship from Baltimore to Miami. We got more to discuss here, but make sure you are locked in here at the channel. Daily coverage, daily content of the Miami Dolphins. Subscribe today, because we are the #1 YouTube channel on the platform when it comes to the Dolphins. Subscribe and don't miss a thing. But let's talk more about Kader Kohou now, because I made a video earlier this past week. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, where I made decisions on each free agent the Dolphins had of importance on if I would bring them back or not. And I, as on Kader Kohou, said I would not bring him back. Now, he was actually pretty solid in coverage this year. He was a top nickel corner in terms of coverage, and the numbers back that up. But the issue that I have with Kader Kohou is that he is such a small person, which allows him to be shifty and cover the other small wide receivers in the slot. But in the run game, and when he tries to step up and make tackles in open field, he really struggles in that regard. And it's frustrating to see him miss so many tackles and kind of get abused, even though he had a really solid year in coverage for Miami this past season. But I could go either way. I know on the video this past week I said that I would not bring him back, but I had to make a decision if I would, I wouldn't. Now, in the truth, I don't really care. If they brought him back, I wouldn't say it's the best move of all time. If they let him go, I wouldn't say it's the best move of all time. I'm really indifferent on what Miami ultimately does with Kader Kohou. He's good enough in coverage to be the nickel for Miami, but there is a room for improvement in terms of tackling and in the run game and becoming a more physical defense. And we're going to talk about some potential free agent corners that Miami could look at to replace Kohou or just add to this depth in just a second. But let me know your thoughts. Should the Dolphins re-sign Kader Kohou? Let me know. Get down in the comment section. Type Y for yes, type N for no. It is an important question for this offseason. Let me know your thoughts. If you look to the free agent corners, there's a lot of veterans, and there's names on here that I omitted that are likely going to get 10 to 15 to maybe even 17, $18 million per season. Charvarius Ward, Byron Murphy, just to name a few. I don't have them on here because Miami is not going to spend that much money on a corner in free agency. That's just not fact. It's just the truth. But they could be going after cheap corners. Veteran 1 year, $5 million deals, 2 years for $12 million in total. That is very much an option for Miami. Now, Mike Hilton's probably the most expensive name on here, but he would also be an elite nickel corner for the Dolphins. In my opinion, he blitzes, he covers, he tackles. He is excellent in that department. If you're going to spend on a corner, maybe you can get him for 3 for $30. Mike Hilton is someone I got my eyes on. But then a couple of these guys, and I know you're looking at Noah. Yeah, I know. But he actually had a really good year for Washington this season. I wouldn't be that surprised if they brought him back. Greer obviously liked him when he drafted him. Could they bring him back, and could it work now with Anthony Weaver? But a bunch of these guys would be like 1 year, $4 or $5 million contract guys to provide depth for Miami on the nickel and the boundary, because if you sign one of these guys, you could start him on the boundary outside with Kendall Fuller and then move Jalen Ramsey to the slot because he does a lot of good work as a nickel corner. And that's why I like the versatility of Ramsey. I wouldn't expect the big signing for Miami in free agency when it comes to the cornerback room, but getting a free agent veteran at a solid cost could prove big time because I'm not so sure I want to lean on Storm Duck, Cam Smith and Ethan Bonner as your backup corners, with two corners that you have starting in Fuller and Ramsey that are up there in age. I think they're terrific. I think they're one of the best duos in football, and they proved it last year with their numbers, but they also could deal with injuries as they get older and older, like Kendall Fuller did this past season. All right, that will do it for this episode of Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. If any news or rumors comes out on this football team, I'll have you covered first on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. So follow me over there. Also stay subscribed to be the most informed Dolphins fan you can be.